Hello everyone and welcome to what is going to be the last walkthrough of this short course. So Rachel, what we're going to be looking at today is the admin and integrations part of Google Analytics 4. So what can you tell us about those?
Yeah, so these sections are well together, to be honest, because they are all about enriching your data. So it's different bits of functionality that exist within the platforms that can really enhance the sort of information that you're passing through. So within admin, we cover various settings that you sort of need to enable, or where you can do further tracking to pass through more information. So we cover events, conversions, things like custom dimensions, etc. And then in the integrations part, we look at how you can link to other platforms, albeit they are Google platforms. There are more integrations available than what we've ever used to have in the old world. And each integration kind of unlocks a new piece of data that pulls into the platform as well. So it's really about how do you enrich that data and kind of link off and try and again, put all of your data into one place.
Sounds good. Let's take a look now.
In today's session, we're going to go through the admin panel in a little bit more detail and also understand integrations. The first thing to be aware of that in the admin panel, there's two purposes here. There is one stream which is all around additional features that maximize the value of the data that you're bringing into the platform. And then there's another stream of work which is all about just making sure you've got the right settings in place in the first place for the data that you're collecting. In the lecture, we're not going to cover the little quality checks in terms of making sure that you have the right data. We're more going to be focusing on how to utilize the features to maximize the data that you're passing into the platform in the first place. So if I head into admin, you'll see there's quite a few different bits and pieces all in this list under our GA4 account. These are kind of bits where you should be looking to check on your data and make sure you're pulling the right data in. And then events is the first bit where we start to figure out maximizing that data. Initially, when you come into events, there might already be some tracking in place. That's because Google Analytics 4 can automatically trigger some basic interactions with your site and holds more information to allow you to measure interaction. So for example, if we go into here, and what we can see, if we head into this automatic event detection, what you can see is the things that's already enabled that it will capture. So it will capture page views, it will capture scrolling, any outbound clicks, any form interactions. This one I find a bit dubious, so I would be careful with it. I would test it thoroughly. And also don't be afraid to make your own tracking that you are 100% confident with. It can track some form of video engagement, mainly specifically on YouTube videos, which is the only downside for anyone who hosts like other type of videos. And then file downloads. So for example, document types like PDFs, text files, etc. can track those all automatically. So when you go into your events section, don't be surprised if there are things already set up. As I've mentioned, everything in Google Analytics 4 is now classified as an event, whether that be a page view, a click, a form submission, whatever that may be. But really, the event is to allow you to measure user interaction across your website or mobile application. Even though there's already events that are set up, it's important to know that you can add your own events that more align with your business objectives and give you the visibility that you need as a business. You could, if you were tracking an important conversion that needed to be a thank you URL, you can just create an event straight away. And for example, you can see in this example, they've got some registration completes, which is tracking a page view, and then it's giving you a URL that it wants to track. So that's how you would set up an event for thank you URLs that are important to you and your business, whether that's like a contact thank you, an event sign up thank you, a checkout completion, for example. That is how you would do it. Because that page view is already being captured, the easiest way to do it is just to create a new event, or you can make a custom event. Now, a custom event is a little bit more tricky because this is where you need an additional source to help you get this visibility. So A custom event is where you can define other events that happen on your website and the relevant parameters that you want to collect this information for that's more aligned to your business. You could use a tool like Google Tag Manager as a way that you could set up the event tracking yourself, or you can ask your web developers or app developers to hard code it onto the platform for you and pass that information through to Google Analytics for. For example, things that you might want to track further, it might be form submissions in that very specific way that we've just talked about. So it's all well and good Google collecting it for you, but there might be nuances to your website where you need to be more specific. You might want to know how many people are filtering with things. So for example, if you have case studies on your website and you've got by industry, you might want to know how many people are engaging with your industry drop down. You might have different elements of engagement on your website all around contacting you. So apart from your contact form, you might have Google Maps installed to let you know where the offices are. You might have email addresses or telephone clicks of the relevant telephone numbers of the relevant staff on your website. And therefore, you might want to track how many people are interacting with these elements. It's important to know that event names can't be any more than 40 characters, and you can only supply one piece of information. So for example, add payment info, add to cart, etc. What you have to then use is other dimensions that would allow you to begin to understand this information a bit more. So for example, if we were to go back into the events report, you've got a list of all of the events that are happening here. But when you click into a specific event that you've passed additional information through via, you can look at this drop down and begin to see all of the additional data that's collected within this event. So while you can only pass one main piece of information through as event name, you can pass additional event parameters through to supply that additional data that you might need. So for example, if we go back to the email addresses, let's say you have your whole sales team on your website and each of them have an individual email address. The event name that you might pass through might be contact _ email click, right? That might be tracking how many times someone clicks on your email. You might want to supply an event parameter through, which is the email address that they're clicking on. So then when you interacted with that event, this would be your volume of email clicks, and then you would be able to choose a parameter that would allow you to see which emails are the most popular, who is getting the most interaction. So custom events are very powerful, but they aren't straightforward. They do require either yourself to utilize a platform like Google Tag Manager to get them in place, or they require elements from your web developer to help support that setup. But it is really important because it really allows you to get visibility of your business objectives, and obviously that's the most important thing. Then when you have all of your events sorted, there's a toggle here for marking it as a conversion. So a conversion should be any action that is valuable to your business. This functionality, if you're familiar with the old version of Google Analytics, or Universal Analytics as it's called, this is what people used to refer to as goals. So now conversions are these actions that are valuable to your business. And you can just toggle these on or off, depending on whether you want to be tracking them or not. If I jump back into reports, a lot of people say, well, you can already see the event column and the conversion column, so why would I need to toggle it as a conversion? So in landing pages, for example, there's certain reports where you can only actually see the one column, and that's why it's really important, because it aids the improvement of reporting on performance. If it's marked as a conversion, you can then import that data into, say, Google Ads, and that allows you to begin bidding on those. And then the attribution reports that we saw in the advertising section, they only work on events that are marked as conversions. So if you don't have anything marked as conversions, there's a whole set of reporting in advertisement that you can't gain any real insight on. So it's important for enriching further parts of the platform. Once you have toggled things as conversions, there is its own little section there to solely look at the volume of conversions, the value associated with those, etc. And it's quite easy to toggle them off again if you need to be. As we go down further, you've got things like custom definitions. This allows you to enhance your data collection outside of anything automatic and outside the standards of the normal collection of dimensions and metrics that exist within Google Analytics. So for example, things that you might want to collect, like why would you use custom definitions? So we talked in the email example, we talked there about you might want a dimension that you can track for email addresses, and in which case that would allow you would create a custom dimension and that would begin to pass information through. Other things that you might want to pass through, so say for example, on all of your blog content, you might want to pass through the author or the date published, because when you're viewing the pages and you're saying, okay, for the last 28 days, what blog content got the most views, you might want to add that dimension on to say, well, how long ago were they posted? Because what about if things that are getting views are blog content from 3 years ago? That might give you that idea that you need to update that content. It might be that that was more relevant to your audience, so you were solving a real problem, and that's how users were finding you. Or in this example, it shows you a discount value, so how much money did they save on their purchase? Or it might be things like lifetime value. You might want to know what their current lifetime value of the account is. You might want to know how many points they've got sat in their loyalty account, for example. So you could use custom metrics to pass through that sort of data. You might want to pass through word count of blog posts. So again, on that theme of like figuring out what blog content works well, if you pass through date published, the author, and the word count, then you've got a huge understanding there of what wins and how to do it, how to replicate that same effect. The only thing to be aware of with custom dimensions is that there are a limit across custom dimensions and custom metrics. So you need to be careful how you're using them and make sure that you are using them effectively as a business so that you can maximize the whole amount of value that you're getting back. And I think if you click quota information here, as you can see in the pop-up, it tells you can have 50 event scope dimensions, 25 user scope dimensions, and then 50 event scoped metrics. So you've got a fair amount to play with, but just make sure that you're thinking about it carefully. Another example in settings that you might need to use is this debug view. The idea here is that obviously we've talked about real time as a way of being able to understand what's happening in the last 30 minutes and if anything's not working as expected on your website, or a way to track immediate performance. But the debug report really shows you how the parameters are passing through into your account and how it's being collected. And then this is really just from a troubleshooting perspective in terms of, is my data collection set up right? Is it working? And then you can kind of understand a user's behavior to see why something is or isn't happening. So say, for example, this is passing through, and as I click into each of these interactions, you can see what's going on. So for example, on this page view, I can go to page location and I would be able to see the exact URL that triggered. I can see different things like engagement. It triggered a custom event, which is all around new recent user activity. And you can see that as it scrolls. And if you do happen to have multiple debug devices set up, you can click into the individuals and track how that goes as well. So this is a great way of being able to track it, say, on a mobile application as well, rather than just a website. So that's really useful too. All of the rest of these features are still important, but a lot of it is more about sort of defining the value of the data that actually comes into your website. It's almost like a checklist. Once you've got it set up correctly, you don't need to keep going back into these and editing them. Whereas the events, the conversions, audiences, custom definitions, debug. Those are things that you might be using time and time again. So just to wrap up what we've covered so far, obviously Google Analytics 4, we've touched on, does automatically collect a handful of events for you by default, but then you can enhance the data by utilizing custom events. Events need to be marked as conversions in order for you to sort of bid on them and utilize them in further reporting. Custom dimensions and metrics are a great way of enhancing the data in Google Analytics, really helping answer those business questions and trying to understand what is important to a user and how to do more on it. And then debug is there if you need to troubleshoot any tracking, any new pages, or just understand if something's working or not working right in that instance. As we go further down, we can see product links. And there's a handful of different product links that you can go through and integrate your Google Analytics 4 account with. What this means when you create the product link is that data can be shared between the two platforms, and therefore you can utilize this data within Explore to really begin to gain additional insight into performance. Now again, there's some limitations here depending on what type of business you are. So for example, if you currently don't pay for 360, then Search Ads 360, Display and Video 360 wouldn't be relevant. If you're not e-commerce, then your Merchant Center link might be irrelevant, and therefore you might just be doing your Google Ads, Ad Manager, and Google Search Console links, for example. And BigQuery is only there if you want to start to share the data between them, and not everyone is deciding to use BigQuery as a method of sort of pulling out this data. So again, you don't need to have all of them linked, but maybe just think around ones that are best for your business. If we just go through the most common, so for example, Google Ads, it's quite easy to set up. You can see in this example there are already some set up, but basically in your account, you would just press the link button and then it walks you through step by step what you need to do. The benefits of linking Google Ads is that one, you can see your Google Ads campaigns in your acquisition reports. You can access new Google Ads dimensions in your user acquisition reports. You can then import your conversions into Google Ads, and you can enhance your Google Ads remarketing with your audience data. There's also a really new interesting metric called YouTube Engaged View Conversions, which are called EVCs. And this is a new conversion that's available if you're running YouTube activity in Google Ads when you link the two platforms together. And a YouTube EVC is an event that indicates that a user's watched a video for at least 10 seconds and then converted on your website within 3 days of viewing the video. So that's a brand new metric that exists by doing this integration if you're running YouTube ads through Google Ads. So that's fantastic. It's really exciting. YouTube is generally would be seen as an awareness platform, a way to kind of generate reach, and therefore trying to measure performance on that has always been quite hard. So it's great to see that they've kind of created this engaged view conversion metric that businesses can actually use to understand if that sort of activity is driving value for their business. And then the other most common link that would apply to most businesses would be Google Search Console. It's the same sort of process. You would hit the link button at the top and Google walks you through step by step what you need to do to get those two platforms linked. The idea here is that it can provide two new reports to Google Analytics. One that is all about your Google organic search queries, so the queries that people are searching to find your website organically. And then the second one is all about Google organic search traffic, which is all about the landing pages, how that people are arriving or viewing in the search results to find your website organically. The reports appear 48 hours after the data is collected. I believe Google Search Console always has a slight delay, so bear that in mind when you are viewing these reports in your Google Analytics 4 interface, that there is a delay there in the data processing. It isn't real time. These Google Search Console reports are created by default and they're in library under the reporting section, but they are unpublished and you actually do have to go in and publish them so that you gain a new set of reports within your platform. Utilizing product links is a good way to enrich the data collection and reporting that you have in your Google Analytics 4 platform. There are a lot more preset integrations than what we've seen in the historic platform. However, it's no surprise that the product links there are only for other Google products, and for example, the likes of Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., you still can't link the two. So Google Analytics 4 is not a one size fits all. It isn't your final answer to all things digital marketing because key other digital platforms cannot integrate in. And it's worth noting that each type of integration comes with different features. So we've talked about those additional reports that you get in Search Console. We've talked about the benefits of utilizing Google Ads links. But it is important to read up on each of the product links as you install them to make sure that you're making the most out of each of the data that comes with it, because there are small nuances, for example, where the report is preset or pre-created, but you do have to go and enable it, etc. So you want to make sure that when you're doing those product links, you've checked all of the actions off to make sure that at the end, you are maximizing the data that comes out there. So just to wrap up some of the key takeaways from this section, obviously in terms of admin, you understand that Google Analytics 4 automatically collects a lot of events for you by default, but you can choose to enhance that data further. You need to mark the events as a conversion to allow you to report and bid on those specific metrics. And then you've also got that custom definitions are a great way of being able to enrich some of that data that's moving into your account. And then from the integration perspective, the importance there is that really each integration unlocks a new bit of data. So it's understanding what that integration's like and then reading up and making sure you're maximizing the data that comes with each integration.